So you see, if you insist on being moved, being determined by the past, that's your game. But the fact of the matter is, it all starts right now. But we like to establish a connectivity with the past, because that gives other people the impression that we're sane. If you ask me then, why am I talking? Well, I could say I'm making a living this way, or I have a message that I want to get across to you. But that is not the reason. I'm talking for the same reason that birds sing, and for the same reason that the stars shine, is I dig it. Why do you dig it? Well, I could go on answering all sorts of questions about human motivation and psychology, but they wouldn't explain a thing, because explaining things by the past is really a refusal to explain them at all. All you're doing is postponing the explanation. You're putting it back and back and back and back, and that explains nothing. What does explain things is the present. Why do you do it now? Now, this is a slight cheat, because that doesn't explain it either. Because what happens now, just as the sound comes out of silence, all this comes out of nowhere. All life suddenly emerges out of space. Bang, right now. And to ask again, why does it happen, is an unprofitable question. Because the interesting thing is not why, but what. What happens? Not why does it happen. I can say, well, I am doing this now because I did that then. And so I am producing for you a continuous line of thought. But actually I'm doing it backwards. I'm doing it always from now and connecting up what I do now with what I did so that you can see a consistent story.
It's wild when people don't know how insane they are. Mm-hmm. And you watch them like, oh my God, they think they're sane. They think they're fine. They think they're going to go on there and make a good argument.
Those are the most insane people, the ones that don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
You've been watching the Fauci hearings?
No.
Whoa. Dude, it's wild. It's wild.
What's going on with that?
Still like deeply in denial about everything. They're confronting him about emails they got, about deleting emails in preparation of a Freedom of Information Act request. They got emails from people that he worked with saying, that don't worry, Fauci is too smart to talk about this stuff on emails. You'll either have to deliver something to him or meet him in person. There's all this like weird deception shit. There's people that said this is clearly leaked from a lab. Look at the fair and cleavage sites. They have to be that's put into the virus to make it more infectious to human beings. They're talking about it in the email. And then that same guy, after talking to Fauci, like 3 days later, is like, it's ridiculous to think this came from a lab. This is clearly from a natural origin. And they're all talking about discrediting people who are talking about the lab leak theory. I mean, what they did was insane, and they did it in front of everybody. And finally, Fauci has to talk about it to people. But he's still in denial about all of it. There's no science that says that masking for children works. There's no science that says that vaccinating children works, that it's good, that it's overall good. And the amount of people that have gotten wrecked by this, they're starting to recognize it in other countries, and they're talking about it in other countries. They haven't quite gone public with it in all the newspapers in the United States yet. But in the UK, they're blaming it. There was the thing about Germany today. There was a front page of like a major newspaper. Somebody sent it to me. I'll send it to you, Jamie. But they're finally starting to talk about it. And they're talking about excess deaths in the Philippines. They're talking about the amount of people that are no longer having children, the amount of less children that are born. Because one of the side effects that is claimed is it wrecks women's fertility. And it wrecks men's fertility too. It's just the baby numbers are down by 1 million.
Too, but I couldn't tell what newspaper it was from.
Yeah, I don't know. I bet if you
writer.
take the title,
I'll take the writer's name.
But they're talking about it. Analyze data.
Sorry, I was googling it. Where was it?
Here we go. It says Researchers from the Netherlands analyzed data from 47 Western countries and discovered there have been more than 3 million excess deaths since 2020, with the trend continuing despite the rollout of vaccines and containment measures. Experts said the unprecedented figures raised serious concerns and called on governments to fully investigate the underlying causes, including possible vaccine harms. This is wild stuff, man, because now that we're getting an understanding of how much deception was involved, like trying to blame it on a natural origin when they clearly knew it was a lab leak, and they still don't say it's a lab leak. It was clearly a lab leak.
Yeah.
It's clearly, obviously I'm not a doctor, but in my eyes, it looks like a fucking lab leak, and most people that are educated think it's a fucking lab leak. And this guy still is denying it.
Yeah.
And was denying that it's even gain of function, and they even funded that research. But they changed the definition of gain of function for this particular vaccine.
What did they change it to?
The definition of gain of function on the NIH website was changed. It was updated.
So that was from the Telegraph.
The Telegraph.
Okay.
COVID vaccines may have helped fuel rise in excess deaths. The excess deaths have to be discussed, and no one wants to, because that's the real thing. The all-cause mortality deaths, the big uptick in cancer, and what they're calling turbo cancer. Obviously, again, I don't understand any of this stuff, but Peter McCullough was talking about what the mechanism behind this rise in cancer would be and how it could be tied into it. He was explaining it like from a medical perspective, and it was just, the whole thing is so nuts. Like, when are we going to learn? Like, when are we going to learn?
Karma. But when we speak about freedom from karma, freedom from being the puppet of the past, that simply involves a change in your thinking. It involves, in other words, you're getting rid of the habit of thought whereby you define yourself as the result of what has gone before, and instead get into the more plausible and more reasonable habit of thought, in terms of which you don't define yourself in terms of what you've done before, but in terms of what you're doing now. And that is liberation from the ridiculous situation of being a dog wagged by its tail.